A very good evening. Welcome to another week of Dan Really Likes Wine, presented by Pick and Pay. After one almightily busy week last week, I must once again congratulate Ken Forrester, Ina Smith, the entire team, Nolene, behind the International Chenin Blanc Congress that took place in Stellenbosch. The highlights of all 3 days are sitting on our platforms. If you missed it, they're not too long. It's about a 15-minute recap of each day. Ronaldo, my producer, having done a brilliant job of editing out some of the many highlights of 3 terrific days of celebrating Chenin Blanc with people from all over the world. We had some lovely conversations, both in those highlights packages, but also on Thursday's live show, the recording of which is still available as well, where we had guys from Australia talking about the Chenin Blanc that they're making. We had wine writers from the UK, people from the Loire, and surprisingly, and some South African makers of this grape that has very firm working class roots, but now is this shining light of South African wine. And last week, I think, did two things. It captured some of that excitement and optimism and drive that we saw at Cape Wine, but it also acknowledged that, yes, we're making world-class Chenin Blanc, but there are still things that we can do a little more of, things that we can perhaps improve upon, things that we can take from other parts of the world, not just the Loire, that can even further enhance what is already such a wonderfully quintessential South African success story. So well done to the Chenin Blanc Association. Thank you to them for hosting us down in the Cape for a few days. And I have to say, Ken Forrester, if you're listening, poor little Ronaldo has almost recovered. Ronaldo is not a large man, and Ken Forrester took him wine tasting. I think he got out of bed 3 days later. Ken Forrester's a lovely man, but gee, he can be a little dangerous when the mood takes him. Wait 3 days, and a big thank you to all of them. And Ken, in fact, is one of the producers who is going to be showcased at an event that is coming up in the next little while. It is Helderberg Fresh, and that is what we're celebrating on the show today, and by extension, Helderberg itself. Constantia Fresh, which I've been to a few times, is a wonderful celebration of Constantia, and so the event has been taken across, not replacing, but complementing its Constantia partner. This is the wineries, the chefs, the life, soul, and culture of the Helderberg. It's put together by Higgo Jacobs, so you know it's going to be a good event. And we've got a couple of the winemakers from the area going to be joining us. One of them is brand new in the area. Is he finding his feet? The other, well, she's been there a little while and knows the area particularly well. So Luke O'Quinnigan from Vergelegen, as well as Nadia Barnard, will be joining us from Waterkloof as we look at the Helderberg Fresh, and just what it is that makes the Helderberg such a special part of South Africa. Before we do that, though, here's your latest wine news. Well, this is news from Elgin and South Hill. South Hill is one of the estates on that along the South Hill Road, I think it's called, so you should know roughly where it is. That has been sold. It's a fairly recent addition to the sales of wine estates this year. There have been quite a few of them that have popped up, but this one, I think it's now German owners who have, who've come in and made that purchase and are looking to take advantage of a property that includes a number of things. There is a little hotel there. There is obviously the wine space, a nice swimming pool, as you can see from the photo. But then there's also an art gallery and a restaurant. It's Aqua Sky Capital, or Africa Capital, who are the shareholders of Aqua Sky, the bottled water company. It's a German and Swiss investment, and it is the latest in a long string of big money sales of South African wine estates this year. A lot of money flowing into the industry, and that, you'd have to say, looks like a sign of confidence from the rest of the wine world in South Africa. So exciting times ahead for South Hill out in Elgin. Then this, the Diners Club Young Winemaker of the Year and Winemaker of the Year. This has been announced as well. They all look terribly smart there, don't they? A little different to normal winemakers in their cellar environment. So who are the 6? Charles Hopkins from De Grendel. You've also got Christophe de Wet from De Krantz, Conrad Flock from Strandveld, Erika Obermeier from Erica Obermeyer, Matthew Day from Klein Constantia, and Warren Ellis from Neil Ellis, following in his father's footsteps. Also, the Young Winemaker of the Year, the nominees, Elzan Bosman from Groot Constantia, André Vergelegen from Kolenhof, Jerome van Rooij from Cederberg, Neil Brouwer from Chamonix, Montebo Lange from Delheim, she was on the show a few weeks ago, and Richard Schroeder from Groot Vissentekral for Syrah that he made. I haven't tried it yet, but I have tried their Sauvignon Blanc, which was lovely. That's made up the Diners Club Awards of Carrie Adams, Hervé de la Besse, Gregory Mutambi, Fiona McDonald, and Rutger van Veek from Stark Conde. 19th of November out at Arabella. So that's next Saturday night. The winners will be announced. Good luck to all, whoever wins. That's a fairly impressive list on both counts. So good luck to everybody there. And then this is the one I'm really excited about. This takes place 2 weeks today. It is the second Dan Really Likes Wine charity auction. Now, you might remember from last year, we had the auction. It was all planned, ready to go at Strauss. And then on about 4 days' notice, because of COVID, we had to postpone, well, we had to cancel the in-person part, and the auction just went online. We still managed to raise 300,000 Rand for Reach for a Dream, and Reach for a Dream will be one of the beneficiaries this year, but we go out to two beneficiaries. The second of them is the Pinotage Youth Development Academy. This is at Strauss in Houghton in Johannesburg. Tickets are 350 Rand, includes canapes and wine and bubbles when you arrive, and we have got over 50 different South African estates who are presenting wine there. It's run through the Nickel Foundation, which is my family foundation. All of the money goes directly to these two charities, Reach for a Dream, helping kids with life-threatening illnesses, and the Pinotage Youth Development Academy, taking young people in the winelands and putting them through a hospitality and wine course that sees 91% of them either into employment or onto further study. If you can't be there yourself, you can bid via the Strauss Art platform from 7 o'clock in 2 weeks' time. And just to give you an idea of some of those auction items, we've got flights down to Cape Town and a trip to go and hang out at the Drift with Bruce Jack and taste a whole pile of wine for the weekend. There are luxury weekends at Plaisir and at Bartony. We've got a huge collection of wine from Bruce as well. And we've got a 9-litre bottle from Constantia Glen. There's a selection of wine that has come in from Villafonte, which is worth a small fortune, as you can probably imagine. And right across the board, you can see a pile of the names down the bottom there. Magnums, big bottles, hospitality experiences, and all that money going to Strauss. If you'd like to come along, web tickets, if you can get there in person, otherwise online at Strauss Art, and all of that money to two fantastic causes. I hope to see you there, as I hope you will be seeing Higgo out in the Helderberg in a couple of weeks' time when he gets together. I think it's about 3 weeks' time now. He gets together with some terrific producers, some wonderful food suppliers at Helderberg Fresh. There we go, Saturday the 3rd of December at Helderberg Fresh. So let's find out what it is all about, and also find out about why the Helderberg is such a special place. Higgo, a very warm welcome. Nadia, welcome to you as well. And Luke, lovely to have you back on the show, albeit in slightly different colours after the equivalent of Robert Lewandowski moving from Bayern Munich to Barcelona in wine terms. We'll get to that big money transfer in just a moment and find out how Nadia is dealing with the new restaurant that's invaded her wine estate. But let's start with Higgo. And congratulate you, Mr. Jacobs. You're always an entrepreneurial sort. This looks like a particularly fun event you put together. Give us a little more detail. What can we expect from this gathering of the Helderberg's greatest?
Thanks, Dan. You've introduced it so well already. There's very little for me to say. This is the second rendition of us doing this. It was sort of the natural progression. It is the sister event of Constantia Fresh, and we thought, let's bring it to Somerset West, because you can keep that fresh theme in terms of what stylistically is done in the area. So we certainly do a regional focus with the wines. But we initially called it Somerset Fresh, with the model being that we also include quite a few producers from elsewhere. And we had the first one December 2019. So this was just before COVID or before lockdown started. We were able to sneak one in. We had that one at Morgenstay. And yeah, it was successful, but it was just the first one, just got going, and then COVID hit. So then during those 2 years, we just did sort of fine wine dinners to keep the brand going of Somerset Fresh. And then very crucially and very positively for us, Vergelegen came to the party after attending Constantia Fresh this year and seeing what a gorgeous, I mean, it was just a cracker of an event this year. So they saw how lovely that event went, and they said, well, let's bring it to Vergelegen. And the one thing they requested was to then just change the name to Helderberg to focus really on the Helderberg producers, which I'm very happy to do because there's some cracking producers and there's also enough. So with most of the producers being in, we're able to have an exclusive Helderberg wine event, and then with all the chefs, all the local top chefs, part of the event. I'll introduce the chefs in a little bit, but just the facts of the event. It's Saturday, the 3rd of December. It's 2 till 6 in the afternoon, so it's sort of an afternoon garden party, summer garden party. It's on the lawns of Vergelegen, beautiful setting. We've got live music going. It's a band called Jerry Liberty. This guy's got a great vibe going. And it's everything is inclusive in the ticket price, and tickets are on quicker.coza, and there's still quite a bit. With Constantia Fresh, the event is 13 years old, so that sells out a week or so before the event. But this is still new for Somerset West, so we're driving awareness of it. But there's still loads of tickets available on the website. So hoping that we get a cracker of a sunny day and then getting people out there.
Just at a simple level, garden party in the Helderberg, summer sunshine, lovely wine, great food. That alone would sell it to most people. But it goes a little deeper than that, particularly because you're at the helm, Higgo, where wine it basically flows through your veins in all manner. And you will have come up with this as something that speaks to an area that just makes particularly fine South African wine. Give us your thoughts on the Helderberg and why you feel this is such a definitive corner of the South African winemaking map.
Yeah, it's an incredibly diverse area, isn't it? Which is actually, part of the reason. If we look at what Constantia Fresh did for the Constantia Valley, and I can't take any credit for that. We've had York Futsner on the show with me when we promoted Constantia Fresh in the beginning of this year. York started that event 13 years ago, and that's done a heck of a lot for this sort of regional awareness of what they do there with white Bordeaux varieties specifically. So when the event started, that gave a lot of awareness and the focus for that. So my idea was actually initially to do Somerset Fresh and then do a very particular focus on the Skarpenberg. So sort of the Somerset side of producers there. But now that we're including the whole of the Helderberg and focusing on that, it's actually quite handy and playing into our hands because it'll increase the diversity of the offering. And it's just quality. I mean, Helderberg, as you would know, is expensive real estate, similar to Constantia. You can't be stuffing around with unattractive and low price point wines. They're all fine wine producers. And what we do is we sort of curate the selection from the producers to make sure that it's obviously mostly whites, but then just freshness and elegance is the general theme. So quite a bit of bubbly white wines. Helderberg is so great with white Bordeaux as well. It's an underrated category, so there'd be some lovely white Bordeaux wines. But yeah, I think the diversity, if you look at the Helderberg all the way from the sort of Paradijskloof Valley, Waterford, that side, all the way around to where Nadia is at Skarpenberg on the other side of the mountain, it's massively diverse. So I think that's the beauty of that part of Stellenbosch.
Well, let's see how the first of our two winemaking guests feels about that summary. Nadia, lovely to have you back on the show. Helderberg's been home for some time now via Waterkloof, and you'll know it particularly well. Has Higgo just about got it right with that summary of the area?
I would say he just about got it right, almost. What I also enjoy about the Helderberg is, first of all, just the coolness of it, as he said. If you go on the R44 and you get onto this Lowes Pass Village Road at the bottom of the Skarpenberg, it's 3 degrees cooler. And then once you get up to Waterkloof, which is over 300 meters above sea level, you're 5 degrees cooler. Soil types, we have quite a diversity ranging from sandy soils to shale to lovely decomposed granite, and also a lot of different slopes. So you can play around with a lot of varietals in the area. And we're definitely making some fantastic Bordeaux whites, which is quite spot on with, and great Cabernet Francs, Cabernet Sauvignons, Bouvard, great diversity in this area. And I think there's going to be, with Luke taking over at Vergelegen, it's also exciting times, and we're going to be seeing definitely some more great wines coming from the Helderberg.
What about your evolution as a winemaker and the time that you've spent there? How much have you learnt from the Helderberg? How much has it shaped not just the wine that you make, but who you are as a winemaker and your philosophy around making wine?
Well, with working at Waterkloof, I definitely came to realize the importance of working in the vineyard. And I think all winemakers will agree with that is the only way to truly make good wine. And how do you do that? By making sure that your vineyard is naturally in balance so that you're not overcropping. And with the wind that we get in the Helderberg, you will never be able to overcrop. You'll always have a low yield, and a low yield is beautiful concentration. And then in the winery side, if you have this good fruit, it's just a hands-off approach. So I don't really do much. I just stomp the grapes a little bit with my feet, and we don't add any yeast, so I just press it and then I just leave it. So it's helped me to work more in harmony with nature by starting with a good product from the start.
And those products will be on show at Helderberg Fresh. We'll find out exactly what from Nadia in a moment. Let's move over to the new man in town. Last time he was on the show, it was tears all round as we were saying farewell to an era at Glenelly. A new one has now begun at Vergelegen. You've had a little bit of time to settle in. How go things in your new home so far, Luke?
It's fantastic. It's such an exciting property, and it's such an honor to be working at a property that's got a history like Vergelegen has. Being in operation for 322 years is quite something. Yes, it wasn't all winemaking that whole period of time, but it certainly started 322 years ago with some winemaking. And it's a magnificent site because it's got this amphitheater, and like Nadia was saying, there are so many slopes and aspects to work with, and the diversity of soils are quite incredible around here, and it's truly exciting. The one thing I'm going to have to get my head around is the influence of the winds that we have around here, which can be quite extreme, and it leads to this concentration like Nadia was speaking about, but at the same time, it's also due to the windy conditions, it helps keep the vineyards healthier because it reduces the humidity and the crop zone for us.
You wouldn't have been brought across to Vergelegen in that move if there wasn't complete faith in you as a winemaker, and you've got an extraordinary track record. But despite that track record, despite everything you've done, it's moving into new terroir, it's moving into a new space, it's understanding a new property. Talk us through some of the challenges of finding your feet in this new space, and what you have found has particularly opened your eyes as you've settled in at Vergelegen.
Well, I think the challenges are just to get to understand the vineyards. So it's not going to be a process that's going to be immediate. So I've had to taste back through a number of vintages and try and piece together what Andre had done in the past. He had done such a fantastic job of leading the property for so many years. And it's trying to get my head around those aspects to get started with. And then I was quite fortunate with coming across to Vergelegen in the sense that it is a Bordeaux-focused property, much like Glenelly was. So it's in my wheelhouse, as it were, and I've got an absolute love for the Bordeaux varietals. So I'm really looking forward to dealing with the conditions that we have here. And it's something that I really want to express coming through from this property as its sense of place and site coming forward. I know it's a cliche that a lot of winemakers say, but I think we're in such a unique spot that we really need to bring it to the fore and have these wines really expressing this uniqueness.
And was that an attraction as much as anything? Yes, there's the history of Vergelegen. Yes, it's got an extraordinary name, and it's a great opportunity. But it sits in an area which would seem, from listening to Higgo, from getting the experience of Nadia, to just offer you so much as a winemaker.
It was an attraction for me coming across because it's a very different profile to what I was used to at the Simmonsburg side, because it being so much cooler. And I think this sense of freshness that the wines can get on this side because of the climate and the hang time difference and everything like that, it was really attractive to me. And it allows us to do different things in the cellar to try and bring these factors to the fore. Typically, if you're looking at the Simmonsburg, they're very, very big, muscular wines, very dark. Whereas I find with the Vergelegen wines that I've been tasting, they're much more elegant, almost more red fruited in spectrum coming through. Got beautiful natural freshness to them. And I think it's a winemaker's dream to be working on a property that's got so many different aspects to it, and that you can start to build something quite complex through the blending process going forward. So I think it's really exciting. And I think the soil types that we have here are so varied that, yes, you might have, let's say, Cabernet Sauvignon, but because it's planted on different aspects and different soils, it's expressing itself so differently in all the different aspects. So it's about marrying it together. And I think that's the artistic side of winemaking, and that's what's going to really be exciting at Vergelegen going forward. But I think one of the discoveries that I've really found is just how magnificent the white Bordeaux blends are that we're getting from this area. It takes me back to my days when I was working in Pisa-Léognan for Chateau Fuzel, and thinking of the Bordeaux blends that we used to make back there, Bordeaux Blancs. And they're wines that are really underrated. You've got great accessibility to them, drinking them early, but you've got ageability because they age magnificently well. And we've got these magnificent examples that we see in the cellar.
The community of the Helderberg, like I think most of our winemaking communities, are generally fairly close-knit and supportive. Nadia, you've got a newish member to your collective. Has he been added to the WhatsApp group yet? And what are you giving him as some advice as he settles in to this new part of the world?
We actually don't have a WhatsApp group, but I think that we should start a WhatsApp group for the Helderberg. No, it's great to get new feet into the area or new personalities. And I've known Luke for quite a long time. And interesting enough, I actually did a harvest at Vergelegen in 2008. So that winery is a great winery to work in. It's so nice and modern. And then tips from the Helderberg, I would say, because it's such a cool site, you can actually leave the grapes on the vine for a bit of an extended time, because your temperatures are a bit more moderate. You've got nice cool evening temperatures. So with that, your sugars don't really shoot up. So you're not really forced to pick, and you can wait a little bit longer to get the aromatics that you want from the grapes. I don't know, with Vergelegen, I think they've got a bit more water on the farm than we have. So with us, I sort of have to spend a lot of time just tasting the berries to make sure that we reach phenolic ripeness in the vineyard. But I think, that's pretty much the key of the Helderberg, is to not pick too early, to just give it a little bit of time before you make that big decision of picking the grapes.
Hope you're taking notes there, Luke. You won't get better counsel than you will from Nadia, who makes some terrific wine at Waterkloof, which will be finding its way into Helderberg Fresh. Give us an idea of the wine we can expect to be on show on the 3rd of December, Nadia.
So we will be pouring our Cape Coral Rosé, which is a lovely fresh style of rosé. It's made from 100% Mourvèdre. So nice complexity, minerality. It's not. It's more a food-driven style of rosé, but I think a lot of people do know us for this rosé. And then we'll be showing our Circle of Life White as well, which is a white blend of predominantly Sauvignon Blanc, Chenin, a little bit of Semillon, and also our Sauvignon Blanc, because that is what you should be doing in the Skarpenberg with these high slopes overlooking the ocean. And then a fun wine is our Seriously Cool Cinzo, which the slogan is drink me cool, but take me seriously. So it's a little bit of carbonic on this Cinzo. We serve it at about 13 degrees. It's a nice fresh style. It will go with, I'm sure, a lot of tuna dishes. It will be interesting to see what the chefs prepare to pair the wines with these dishes.
I'm really glad you're including that, because it's a wine I love, and it's a combination of the style of wine that is very much in vogue at the moment, or becoming increasingly more so, red wine that you can take a bit of heat off going into summer, but also wine that's just beautifully made and a great deal of fun to drink. If I go back to your comment just before that, they're talking about the kind of wine we should be making. It's a constant debate within South Africa, what different areas should be making, because there's so much we can do well in different areas, but there are general focuses that the different regions do try and lean towards. We've already heard Bordeaux style whites come up a few times. What are the grapes, the varietals, the blends that you feel really speak most closely to what is at the heart of the terroir and the wine of the Helderberg?
Well, where we're situated at Waterkloof, we have this beautiful amphitheatre of vineyards. So directly on the south-facing slope and very high up, the Sauvignon Blanc works fantastically. I'm also enjoying Cabernet Franc as well, because if you think of the Loire Valley, Cabernet Franc is unlike Cabernet Sauvignon, doesn't need as much heat units. And then something that we're focusing on at Waterkloof quite a bit now is Mourvèdre, because also we're very much influenced by the French with what they planted. If you think of the Bandol region, where you've got fantastic rosés like Domaine Tempier, it's overlooking the ocean and very high up. And then your soil, our Mourvèdre's planted on a combination of a little bit of decomposed granite, but predominantly sandstone soil. So a lot of rocky terrain, and that also helps with good drainage. And Mourvèdre doesn't need as much water too. And at the moment, where we're situated, contradicting the name Waterkloof, we don't have a lot of water. So we need to also focus on varietals that is not as in need of water. So the Mourvèdre definitely works for us.
There's a selection of those wines, not just from Waterkloof, but from a number of wineries that will be awaiting you at the Helderberg Fresh celebration. And you can decide if you feel that the styles described there by Nadia, the ones that you think get it just right. I suspect you might well. Before I find out who else is exhibiting from Higgo, just quickly, Luke, asking you a very similar question from the relatively brief time you've had so far. I know you've already alluded to the Bordeaux whites, but from a Vergelegen perspective, the wines that really shout loudest, this is where I come from, in terms of Vergelegen?
I think, just like Nadia said, I think the Cabernet Franc is stellar from the property. Cabernet Sauvignon has always been one of the cornerstones of the property as well, in its expression. I think our site also lends itself to working well with Merlot, because we can reduce that stress load that Merlot gets. So yes, we are a very Bordeaux-focused property going forward. And I think with the cooler conditions, it really helps with the hang times and getting the expression of the varietals really coming through, and helping build the complexity in the wines ultimately.
All right. Well, again, you'll be able to decide whether you think that Luke's on the money there at Helderberg Fresh, which doesn't just feature Vergelegen and Waterkloof. You'll also find Ernie Els there, Pink Valley, Dornier, Waterford, Lawrenceford, Idiom, Journeys, and it's a great selection of wineries. Higgo, you will have seen the list of who is providing what. What are some of the highlights? What are the wines? Even the great Higgo Jacobs, who tends to open Grand Crus for breakfast and take the day from there. What's got you really excited about that wine drinking lineup on the 3rd of December at Helderberg Fresh?
Yeah, I wish, Dan. I'd say, I mean, again, just if you read that list, this is the beauty of, you've alluded to it earlier, you know, South Africa can almost do everything well, and even just a ward of Stellenbosch, like the Helderberg, has this diversity of world-class ability across categories. I mean, so for me, what probably would jump to mind first, if you ask me that question about, you know, what stands out for Helderberg, then Bordeaux for me does come out, especially if you look at that nook there where Luke has moved to. I can't help as a wine fan but to get excited about future vintages that's going to come out of Vergelegen with Luke at the helm there. I mean, yeah, it's just something that one gets excited about, isn't it? But then, you know, you go around the corner and there's world-class Chenin with Stellenrist, Ken Forrester. I think Cavalli also makes, for me, that's my favorite wine from them. They make a really good Chenin. Then there's some phenomenal rosés here. There's the rosé specialist with Pink Valley, but then, you know, also I love that rosé, the Cape Coral from Waterkloof is delicious. And then, you know, we can't ignore the phenomenal Shiraz that comes from the Helderberg as well. It's been, if you look at that golden triangle, historically, what they've been able to achieve with Shiraz. Unfortunately, you know, the top Shiraz guys, what comes to mind, for instance, the Trafford and Kiermont and so forth, they have an event, on a little cycling event on that day. So they'll join in the future, but they're not there this year. But there's just, it comes to mind, like the phenomenal Shiraz also in the valley. But I think, you know, as a Bordeaux fan, I'm going to try and coax some of these producers to, maybe, even if it's in an unofficial way, to have an older vintage or two tucked away under the table there, you know, pouring it sneakily, because that for me is really the top expression of what the area has. If we think about Waterkloof, so you know, I love all three of those wines that Nadia mentioned. The Seriously Cool, I was one of the really first fans since the first vintage, because that style, Ice Bucket Cinsault, is just it's just glory in summer. But for me, their best wine is the Waterkloof Sauvignon Blanc, and I realize they can't be pouring that in gallons out at an event, because they make a minute amount of it. But that wine, if you can, put it in your cellar 5-6 years and then drink it. And similar with the Morgenstern White, the Vergelegen White, these wines are just so ageable. So if I can try and work on some of the producers to have some older vintages there of the Sauvignons and the White Bordeaux, then I think that's the highlight.
All of which leads to the major challenge of events like this, Higgo, and you do make life difficult for us. It's only one day. There is so much to try and get through, and you've either got to make generous use of a spittoon or risk having a rather long and slightly hazy Sunday morning. But what's the art? What's Higgo's secret to making the best of an event like this in terms of your approach? Are you dashing about and hand selecting some whites? Are you sticking with just one or two estates? What's best in your mind?
It won't be too many wines, actually, Dan. So, you know, with the regional focus there, I think it's probably around 120 to 150 different wines. So it's still a lot of wine, I realize. I mean, nobody necessarily going to taste all of them. But I think the good thing to do is, if you have a stylistic preference, if you're a Chardonnay guy, there'd be quite a lot of really smart Chardonnay. There'd be a nice selection of Chenin, you know. So, and then obviously we've mentioned extensively the Sauvignons and the Bordeaux. So maybe try and have a style that you're into, and then you know, bounce around. But then at some point, what people do. So what's lovely about our events, it's really not as much of a wine tasting as it is a garden party. At some point, folks find a place to sit, because there's also, you know, the food going around. So folks would find a place to sit and then maybe purchase a bottle of something that's delicious. It's also good to support the producers. You'd get by with not having to buy any wine because there's so much to taste. But, you know, guys don't want to be standing around for too much. They buy a bottle, they go and sit at a table, they enjoy the music. And then we've got 6 chefs. I really do need to touch on them because there's some superstars on the list here. We've got Bertus Basson. So I'm bringing up the chefs here now because that's crucial to keep the stamina going. It's only 4 hours.
If I can hold you for a second there, Higgo, I'm going to jump in with chefs in a moment, but I do want to preempt it because Bertus has got a new home, and I want to find out how he settled in before we lead into that food, which is such a big part of Constantia Fresh. Before I do that, though, let me go back quickly to Luke and see, Luke, have you got an approach when you go to a big wine fair, a big wine event, you're making your way through Cape Wine, for example, or something similar? Is there a winemaker's secret to somehow getting the very best out of these and maximizing the opportunity?
I think everybody approaches them slightly differently. My personal approach is, before I go into these things, I've kind of decided what I'd like to taste going through the event. Let's say it's Simzo's or something like that. I'll go through and just look out for those wines, and then only taste something that really, if it's outside that portfolio, I only look for something that's really catches my fancy. Yeah, but people do it different ways. I know some people that go through and try and do all the whites and then go with all the reds afterwards. Yeah, but if you're going to do that, you're going to have true stamina, like I think Ronaldo had when he went out with Ken.
Yeah, just mention the name Ken Forrester, and Ronaldo bursts into tears at the moment. He's certainly not the only one. And kind of by an extension of that, whether it is at Helderberg Fresh, Luke, or just being in the area, is getting out to the other farms and states, finding their wine, getting a sense for what else is in this area that you are now going to be making wine in for the foreseeable future. A big part of getting to understand what's available and what the different styles speak to.
It is, and fortunately over the years I've always tasted around this area anyway, and then chatting to the different winemakers in the area, you get a feel for what's going on. I recently spent quite a bit of time with Skulk up at Tybosch as well. So I think it's touching bases with a lot of people and starting to build an image for yourself, but ultimately your property is going to dictate exactly what's going to come through to the fore. You must understand that a place like Vergelegen, it's not a small property. It is over 3,000 hectares. Yes, we've only got 160 hectares planted, but within that, you've got such diversity and expression coming through. It's really about understanding the property first, and what it has to offer and what its expression is.
The diversity of the Helderberg, which Luke is getting very happily sunk into. It's not just about wine, though. Nadia, I know you've got Nguni cows. Did I see, have you got some Angora goats that have just arrived at Waterkloof as well?
We've had the goats for a while. We used to have sheep, but we replaced the sheep in our composting system with the Angora goats. Because they're actually a bit more effective when it comes to making compost, because they're 30% grazers and then 70% they actually stand and eat from the trees. So you get a nice diversity when it comes to your compost system. And that is such a big part of Waterkloof, is making good compost, feeding our soil, increasing the carbon load in our soil. So yeah, that's part of our diversity, is all the animals on the property.
And there's a reason that you've got Circle of Life wines. It's not just lip service. It's a huge part of your philosophy. And it's one that I think is becoming a lot more adapted. We saw Cape Wine sustainability was the big driving conversation around the different themes that were discussed each day and through the course of the whole event. There was a time, I think, Nadia, when the extent of your approach, the commitment to this kind of philosophy was very much the exception rather than the rule. How much of a shift are you seeing? Are you now no longer out on your own as trendsetters? Are more and more people following in your footsteps and adapting this kind of all-encompassing and wholesome approach to making wine?
Yeah, no, definitely, Dan. A lot of people are trying to make sure that, to emphasize on it again, that they're building on their carbon in the soil, because we are still seeing slightly drought conditions. I mean, we are technically supposed to be getting about 600 mils of rain. This past winter, we were about on 440. And from what I've been talking to a lot of the other people in Stellenbosch, they're in a similar boat where they're realizing that this drought, it's not going to leave us. So we need to make sure that we are looking after our soils. We're doing integrated farming. We are getting the roots to go down deeper into the soil to get its own moisture. And so a lot of people are doing, I know at Stellenbosch, they're working a lot with biochar as well. They're also pretty much going organic. So a lot of people are following or going into that direction. And it makes me very happy, to be honest, because it's a lot better for the environment. And then most importantly, it's so good for the vineyards. The vines are going to be lasting a lot longer. They're going to be more naturally in balance, and we're going to be making fantastic wines, even better than we are currently making in South Africa.
It's hard to imagine that that is possible, especially with you, Nadia, but I have no doubt it will be the case. And I think it's that commitment, that love of local and loving local in the right way that served as part of the attraction, along with a rather nice view and some pretty good wine, for a guy by the name of Bertus Besson to decide to launch his new spot, as we sadly said goodbye to Overture at Hidden Valley. So we said hello to Chorus, which has only just opened. It's already seeing full houses and producing some sensational food. What's it been like working with Bertus, engaging with him, particularly because here's a man, don't think Bertus is a chef. First and foremost, he's a complete wine anorak and wine nut, and he absolutely loves creating wine lists. What have those conversations been like? How much fun has it been playing around and engaging with Bertus as this new restaurant has taken off?
Bertus is really a great guy. I admire him and Madly, his wife, so much. But I'm going to be honest, this first month, I sort of left them a little bit because they came in and they hit the ground running. The restaurant is fully booked. It's been fully booked since the day they opened. But Bertus, yeah, he's just great. He's so interested in wines and he's fascinated with food and wine pairing. So I think it's going to be great during the harvest season too, because I can actually see him and his team really coming into the winery and, you know, forming an integral part of Waterkloof. Well, like Gregory also used to do, you know, so it's for me very exciting to get someone in again who's also interested in wine and who can, you know, form a part of the Waterkloof concepts and philosophy, because also with his way of cooking, so much complexity and also improving the whole time. And so now it's exciting times ahead. And I think we're going to be making a very good team.
Oh, you're going to be making an outstanding team. Although Bertus is under a bit of pressure, Nadia, because no matter how much he does, no matter how well he produces food at Chorus, I suspect he's only going to be at best the number 2 ranked chef on your list, because there is a guy called Tian who I suspect might just slot in at number 1.
It's inevitable, you know. I married a chef, so he will always be my number 1 chef. And but I must say it's nice to have that hustle and bustle again there at Waterkloof, and just, you know, seeing everyone coming in and appreciating that beautiful view that Waterkloof has to offer. And even with Bertus and Madly, they're just always saying how in awe they are of that view.
It is an exquisite setting. You'll do well to get in there, though, because as Nadia says, it is well booked for the next little while. But do drop them a line at Chorus to try and get in there, because the view is matched by the food. And if you want to get a sense of that food, well, you can get down to Helderberg Fresh to join Higgo and his team, because Bertus, representing not just Chorus at Waterkloof, but also Clara's Barn at Vergelegen, which will also be showing at Helderberg Fresh is the headline act. What is wine without food? What is a Higgo Jacobs Fresh event without the best of wine and the best of food? Higgo, you've already mentioned that Bertus is there. Give us a sense of what he'll be giving us, as well as the team at Waterford and the rest of the chefs you've accumulated for this standout day.
So that's definitely the main secret of getting through the day in good stead, and you know, getting good lining going in order to taste all the wines that you want to. So yeah, Bertus, we're very excited that he's joining and in the valley. And then another superstar, at least in my books, is Craig Cormack. He's teaming up with Beau de Toy. They've opened recently at Waterkloof Waterford. And also probably not that recent. It must be a couple of years now that he's moved there. But he's just an exceptional chef. And the key thing for me also with you know, we've learned our lesson with doing food and wine events in all forms and formats. You know, some chefs have a knack to do great food for 10 or 20 people, but they can't necessarily extrapolate that to 200 or 800. And Craig is one of those people that can cater for a lot of people and have a quality consistently across the bench. So very happy to have Craig there from Waterford. Then Vergelegen themselves are represented with the Stables restaurant. That's Michael Bridgman. So that's also lovely and gorgeous to have. I think that's another restaurant that you struggle to find a seat in summer. And then Ehrenberg Hotel, they're partnering with us quite nicely from over the road there. So their chef is represented Stefan Becker. And then Botanicum, the restaurant at Morgenstern. They're also in Constantia. They have a branch there. That's the sort of the upmarket end of bootlegger, but it's, you know, don't underestimate the food that these guys do. It's phenomenal food. And then finally, Lawrenceford Estate with the Genoa's Culinary Club is also going to be there. That's sort of Middle Eastern exotic sort of food. So I think there's going to be a lovely range to match all of this diversity of the wines that's on offer there as well.
I'm salivating already. This is going to be a cracker of a day out. Before we get a last reminder from Higgo as to how to get there and get the last of the tickets before they sell out. Nadia, just from a Waterkloof perspective, in between being distracted by chefs left, right, and center, the approach that you use to make your wine is very well established. You've reminded us of it. What about the actual wine? What's new? What's changing? What's on the horizon? What can we look forward to from you and from Waterkloof?
So at Waterkloof now, vineyards are getting to a nice age where we've recently launched our Waterkloof Chenin Blanc and then also our Waterkloof Syrah. And as you are well aware, we've only had under the Waterkloof name a Sauvignon Blanc for the last 15 years. So we launched the 2020 Waterkloof Syrah and then the 2021 Waterkloof Chenin. So that for me is very exciting to be showing these wines to our clients.
I think the perfect pairing is one of two things. Either get out to Chorus and try them together over a meal, or get down to Helderberg Fresh. What about you, Luke? You've had a little bit of time to find your feet. What's the balance between this is Vergelegen, this is its history and heritage, this is what it makes, versus I'm Luke, I'm new, I bring my own approach and I bring my own history and my own experience, and kind of, I suppose, bringing those together, imprinting your own signature on what you do, while still recognizing and acknowledging this long history that's already in place?
Yeah, I think that's always the tightrope that a winemaker has to walk. I think ultimately, as I've alluded to before, we want the expression of the place to come through, and I'm just going to steer it in that sort of direction to try and get the best expression of its uniqueness. And I always love in my wines to have the fingerprint of the vintage coming through. So that's going to be very important for us as well, that we have got this vintage variation, which makes drinking wine so exciting, and why one vintage is great and another one you consume earlier while you're waiting for the great vintage to mature. I suppose it's a very French philosophy as you that I follow because of all the time that I spent working in Bordeaux. But I think one of the fantastic things about hosting the Helderberg Fresh coming through is that we've got these magnificent gardens on Vergelegen as well. So you've got the old camphor trees, which are there for over 320 years. You've got the rose gardens and everything. So it's an unbelievable setting for an event like this.
Look out for that setting as your host of Helderberg Fresh on the 3rd of December. There are a few tickets left. Higgo Jacobs, how do we get hold of them? And just give everybody a final reminder, a summary of just why this is not one you want to miss come that weekend.
Just to add on to what Luke was saying there, I walked around with the CEO, with Wayne, who's a hoot. I mean, he's so much fun, and he takes so much pride in showing around those beautiful gardens at Vergelegen. And there's a tree there that's literally a heritage site, I think. I mean, we couldn't have our events close to that tree because, we wouldn't want folks to do anything to the tree. It's just remarkable. There's some really old oaks, and those camphors are magnificent. And I mean, one has to realize that, this was one of the first properties in the Cape to be claimed by one of the governors. And, the guys go for the best sites first. This farm is not only one of the prettiest places in the Cape, but in the world. It's just an exquisite setting. And if you get a beautiful day, which we are banking on in December, in the shade of the trees, that's really, for me, the highlight is just the location. And yeah, we'll have some great vibes going with the music, and the wines will be cold and the food will be good. So I think it's not to be missed. It's the tickets are on quicker.co.za, and it's 750 Rand per person, but bear in mind that includes everything, all the food, all the wines, and all the entertainment. So I think it's still actually a steal. They are tickets at Quicket.
Some of the finest wine in South Africa, made by Nadia and currently overseen by people like Luke. Terrific food headlined by Bertus and Craig McCormick, amongst a blur of dizzyingly good culinary experts. Music playing through the afternoon in just an absolutely charming location that is Vergelegen. You're in for a cracker of a day, Saturday, the 3rd of December, as the Constantia Fresh spin-off, Helderberg Fresh, has its latest iteration. You might remember it as Somerset Fresh, but now very happily Helderberg Fresh, and why not? Here's my guide to getting the best out of it. Eat everything possible. Try every glass of wine you can from Waterkloof and Vergelegen, and then just see how far you can go thereafter. It's going to be a lovely, lovely day out. Higgo, best of luck. Thank you very much for being on the show to celebrate it. Nadia, likewise. I think that Coral Rosé will have very many happy fans through the course of Saturday afternoon. And good luck keeping Bertus in check as Chorus gathers steam. And Luke, I know you've been on the phone to me asking when I'm coming to check out your new property, which I think you own half of in terms of the deal. I'm not sure the details, but I will be down to have a look at it and see how it's all playing out. Guys, have a lovely day on the 3rd. It looks absolutely fabulous. Whoever's there is going to have a great time. And thanks very much for being part of the show this evening.
Thank you, Dan.
Thanks so much, Dan.
Nice.
So there we go. Nadia out at Waterkloof, Luke at Vergelegen, and Higgo. I don't think anybody knows where Higgo lives. He's just got this secret cellar somewhere where he and Roland hatch up cunning plans. Lovely to have all three of them on and joining us at the Constantia Fresh spin-off that is Helderberg Fresh. Just remember, we'll be talking about it again on the show this week and next week. Monday, the 21st of November is the Dan Really Likes Wine charity auction and that is supporting Reach for a Dream and the Pinotage Youth Development Academy. I'm really excited about this. I think we're going to raise a lot of money for 2 terrific causes. Before then, make sure you join me on Thursday, where I'll be catching up with Wijn en Grobbelaar from Infinity Wines, the makers of the Kleine Wijnkorp and the Infinity Wines themselves. That is co-owned by one Faf du Plessis, the South African cricket captain, former thereof, who has released his autobiography, Through Fire. He and I are doing a number of events, including a dinner tomorrow night at the Old Oak at Royal Johannesburg. On Thursday, our live show will be myself and Faf from Exclusive Books, along with Vaynant, who's currently in North Carolina, as we try some of the different wines and tell the story of Faf's life through wine, which is far more interesting than boring old cricket. And anyway, after this weekend, we're not talking about cricket ever again. That does it for today. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a lovely, lovely week. We'll see you back live on Thursday and hopefully in 2 weeks' time at the Dan Really Likes Wine auction. Thanks for joining us. Take care. Goodbye. To join the Pick and Pay Wine Club, simply SMS your smart shopper number to 36775. It's absolutely free, and you'll get for yourself 3 times the smart shopper points on every bottle of wine bought. You'll also get a 20% discount on 10 different wines each month, a 25% discount on a case of wine, and a Magnum, some terrific competitions and invitations to awesome events.